Kia ora, team, and welcome along to tonight's group coaching call. Master your motivation, how to stay consistent with triathlon and run training. It also applies to cycling, kayaking, multi-sport. The principles are utilized across all disciplines. We're looking at some proven strategies to build habits and avoid burnout for beginner and recreational athletes. So, people like you and me who hold down a regular job with other commitments, whether it's family or study or a combination of all those commitments above. It's a battle to get out there and get your training done from time to time. Other days it's easier. We're not getting paid to rest. We're getting paid to live our lives. Well, actually, we get paid to do our work, and then we need to live our lives and fit our training in around that. So we're going to look at a few things today, the difference between motivation, discipline, and habit. We're going to look at your why. We're going to cover off SMART goals, as well as harnessing the power of routine and habit. Just admit another person, looking at accountability and support systems, and celebrating progress and wins, as well as the long game, sustainable motivation. Kia ora, Taylor. Welcome along. So, the difference between motivation, discipline, and habits. Motivation is your initial drive or desire. Why have you started this journey? What is behind you training for whatever it is that you're training for, whether it's a half marathon, whether it's a triathlon, whether it's coast to coast, whether it's something else. So, what is that motivation, that initial drive? Discipline, that's the conscious effort to stick to that action. It's getting up early to get your training done before having to go to work. It's making sure that you complete the training regularly and consistently. And habit, that is the result of applying that discipline consistently. What is your why? Everyone has a different reason of why they're training for a triathlon, for a half marathon, for a 10K, for a park run. Whatever it is you're training for, everyone's reasons are different. Some people are training for health. Maybe they want to lose a little bit of weight. Maybe they've been told to improve their lung function. Some people want the achievement of being able to say, yes, I've done an Ironman, or I have done a park run, or even lifestyle reasons. You just enjoy getting out running, enjoying nature. And I chose this photo of Diane particularly for that reason. She was someone that always competes with a smile on her face, whether she's doing I won't use the word stupid, an extremely long distance event like the 1,000 kilometer Great Ride. I think that I can't even remember what it was called, maybe a mammoth, or I know it was bigger than the Magnum. So 10 laps around the 100K Great Ride course. But she always competed with a smile. This is her down in Challenge Wanaka, back in the old days when the challenge was the full distance. And these days with her powerlifting, every time she puts a video or a photo of her competing, she is still smiling. She never stops. So lifestyle comes into it, a big part of that. And another part of that is your personal identity. I know some of the people in this room identify as triathletes or identify as cyclists, and no, they will never do a triathlon. They might do the cycle leg, but they will never do a triathlon. That is part of their identity, and that's another reason why they focus on their training. Whether you're calling yourself a triathlete and that is your identity, I need to think back to 1990 was the last year that I did not do a triathlon. That is part of my identity of who I am. And there's been a couple of years where I've snuck in late in the season, done a triathlon. Occasionally it's been March, but there was occasion where my last triathlon for the season was April, leading into the New Zealand winter. So it's something that all of a sudden I've been focusing on other aspects of my life, and it's like, wait a minute, I haven't done a triathlon this season. So I found something suitable to plod my way through to get to the finish line. So as part of building these habits, we need some goals. The goals are going to help tie you in along with your why, which is going to help make you commit and be consistent with them. Smart goals are goals that are specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're relevant, and they're time bound. But that doesn't mean they can't be flexible and adaptable as well. So specific means your goal is to do X. Now that X can be finish an Ironman, or it might be to run 5Ks in a certain time. It needs to be specific. It needs to be measurable. The example of finishing the Ironman, did you cross the finish line? Yes or no? We are measuring it. Example of running a 5K under a certain time. If that time was 20 minutes, you either do 7:59 or 19:59 or faster, or you don't. It needs to be achievable. If you have never done a triathlon before, trying to do an Ironman in a month's time is not achievable. 6 months, 12 months down the line, that could be a different story depending on who you are and your background. It needs to be achievable based on your circumstances. It needs to be, or the goals need to be relevant. If your goal is to finish an Ironman, spending a lot of time in a kayak is not relevant to that goal. So everything needs to fit together, and time bound means that it needs to fit within a certain time frame, or the time frame needs to be part of that goal setting procedure. And I've used the example of doing an Ironman in 1 month time. That might be achievable depending on your background, but as I used before, or it may not be achievable depending on your background. But putting that time frame on the goal is going to help tie you in for that success. Depending on how long that time frame is, you might have short, medium, and long-term goals as part of that. Someone training up for the Cycle Leg at Challenge Wanaka might have a short-term goal of boosting their FTP by 10 watts over the next month. The long-term goal for someone wanting to do the individual event at Challenge Wanaka might be to complete it under 6 hours, and a medium-term goal leading into that might be doing an Olympic distance triathlon as a stepping stone towards that longer-term goal. Other ways of looking at goals are looking at the processes versus the outcome. So far, I've talked about outcome goals, finishing an Ironman, doing a 5K in under 20 minutes. Those are outcome goals. Process goals might be along the lines of you've got a goal of doing a 10K or a half marathon in the future. Your process goal might be completing 3 run workouts every single week between now and the race day in 20 weeks' time, or whatever that duration is. That consistency of that process goal, or it might be 3 runs and a stretching session. The process of getting there is the important part of the journey to achieve the outcome, whether that outcome is a time frame or a time goal, or just crossing the finish line. To harness the power of routine and habit, we need to combine the two of them. Daily habits can start the night before. If you've got an early morning cycle session on Velocity lined up, having your cycle shorts and jersey and cycling shoes ready to go, maybe your drink bottle even filled up and in the fridge, good to go. It's 1 less, 2 less, 3 less things to do when you get up in the morning. And if those things, the straw that breaks the camel's back, that means you don't get out of bed, then there's 3 less excuses of not doing the session. Having that alarm set and waking up early and getting out and doing that training first thing is part of that habit and routine. It might be that you start work nice and early, and having that routine of doing the training as soon as you finish work is more appropriate for your lifestyle, but it's part of that habit and setting things up for success by preparing things the night before or the morning before going to work. And routine, as with all training, where we're trying to build our aerobic fitness, consistency is the key. Now, there's a range of accountability and support systems you can utilize. There's family and friends. You can use local sports clubs. If you're a triathlete, being part of the local triathlon club or part of the local cycling club, giving back to the local community, they draw a lot of energy from that. And if people know your goals and you find yourself in these environments, you'll often find people asking you, how's your training going for Wanaka? Or how's your training going for Taupo? How's your training going for Dunedin? Depending on what the event is. Facebook groups are really great to help keep you accountable and offer support systems. The Quick Kiwi VIP Facebook group is a great resource there. Lots of positive feedback flowing in whenever someone puts a comment in, which is really great to see. Other Facebook groups, there's plenty out there depending on what you're training for and what you're preparing for. I know there's a lot of beginner beginner triathlon groups on Facebook. If that is what you're looking at doing and want to draw support and accountability, then just search in Facebook for those groups. There's plenty of options there. Celebrate your progress and your wins along the way. Tracking small improvements, whether it be how fast you're running or cycling, the power output average for the workout, etc. Maybe it's your long run is getting slightly longer and slightly longer and slightly longer. Instead of running 5Ks that you did 2 months ago, now you're running 7Ks. These small progresses all build on the previous ones and accumulate to give you that progress. They are wins. Celebrate them appropriately. Small wins deserve small celebrations. The big wins of finishing the half marathon or completing the Ironman, they deserve the bigger celebration, but doesn't mean you can't celebrate those small wins along the way. It might be something that's subjective as well. So just your effort. You feel good that you've had a really good effort in that workout. Give yourself a pat on the back. Allow yourself to have a wee treat of some description. Non-physical wins can also be big milestones. Consistency streaks. You'll notice for those that ride Velocity with me, every week I'll post how many people are achieving different milestones along their journey. The consistency is the key there. And riding on Velocity regularly means you're going to get that fitness with your cycling. With a couple of my athletes, we track their sleep and aiming to get that 8 hours consistently 7 days in a row. If you use a Garmin, Garmin actually give you sleep badges for every 7 days in a row where you have a quality sleep. And it might be something even more subjective than that, is just how you are feeling on a day-to-day basis. You get up and give yourself a grading out of 10. How do you feel? I'm an 8 this morning. I'm going to crack in and go have an amazing training session. Or you might wake up with the flu and go, I grade myself a 3 this morning. I'm feeling pretty rubbish. And modulate and moderate the training based on that. The long game is key. It's not a short journey to do a half marathon. It's not a short journey to do a full marathon. It's not a short journey to do a 70.3, and it's not a short journey to do a full Ironman. The long game is building towards that light at the end of the tunnel. It might be times where that light feels a long way away, and that's where the importance of those short-term and the medium-term goals I mentioned before. The points I've got there: avoiding burnout by balancing your training with recovery. Each week I have that stretching session, or maybe 2 in your training, depending on what you're training for and your other commitments as well as your background. But make your training enjoyable. Enjoy your sport. Mix up the sessions, have some fun races, and get out and maybe do some adventure training. Instead of going for a long run in the flat of the city, get out and get up into the hills, onto the trails, and go enjoy somewhere different as part of your training. Any questions? All right, we'll run through. I'm not sure who got there first because a couple of people got on the call before me. Just like last week, we'll go left to right. Stu, you are on the left-hand side of my screen. Any questions from you, either about habit building and motivation or about training in general?
No, I think, yeah, I know what I need to do. I just got to focus. I mean, I do the get all my cycle kit ready and I get all my, but yeah, it's just difficult with this job because I start at 7:30, so it just makes it tight. So, yeah.
Yep. And just before you go. I do know I've got a couple of messages sitting there unread on Messenger from you. I had the preview come up on my watch. I need to sit down and look at things before I reply. Jason, your next cab off the rank?
No, I think it's probably more just an observation in terms of trying to maintain motivation where I don't have anything in the sort of short to medium term to train for. I think for me, sort of especially last year when I first started out and I had that specific one goal, I definitely hit a lull in my training and motivation after I'd hit that. So I think for me, it's probably just a a timely reminder to, I guess, reset and find some shorter term goals to keep my head in the game.
Yeah, well, you've got the stepping stones. You've got that shorter triathlon in December. You've got Challenge Wanaka as part of that team in February. And then you've got Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure coming up after that. Each stepping stone along the way is one's going to build to the next and contribute to that and contribute to the one afterwards. But they're all three distinct goals with three distinct training patterns. Obviously, the short course triathlon is going to be a multidiscipline training plan. The focus on the run leg in Challenge Wanaka will, you're a triathlete by sport. As we did last year, we'll keep the focus on triathlon training with a run emphasis, and then obviously the
Yeah,
tweaking after Challenge Wanaka for the next adventure.
yeah. You've also forgotten the most important event of the year, which is happening in on the West Coast around about November,
That's right.
December.
Yes, I forgot about
Yeah,
defending your title there. I'm going to be in Queenstown, doing the Queenstown half,
yeah,
so I won't be there. I'll cheer you on remotely like I did last year. I can't even. I think I was further south last year as well, wasn't I? But
yep.
you've got a title to defend, so
That's right. Yeah.
and there'll be a
No, no. Yeah. Thank you.
gravel
What's
bike
that?
available for you to borrow as well to keep that winning steed.
Oh, tempting.
Anything else before we move on to Tanya?
Nah, it's all from me. She's all yours.
Sweet, Tanya.
Um, yeah, one of the things that I did earlier this year was took my coaching program and overlaid my life onto it and created a rest and recovery plan because sometimes I find I get sort of so wrapped up in the training stuff that I actually forget, oh, I've got 3 night meetings that week. Or we've got a commitment away. Like I've got, a sector meeting in Wellington for 3 days or something like that. And I sort of, I don't know, beat myself up that I haven't achieved my training program, but I'm knackered because of these other things in my life. So I was trying to plot and color code where I'm going to get decent rest. And I found that kind of really good. But I guess the one question I've got is what tips would you have if somebody like falls off the wagon, like completely loses motivation and like what tips do you have for kind of getting back on? Because sometimes that can feel really overwhelming.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Tanya. And I'll answer that before sort of talking about how you color coded and looked at it, that bigger picture, which is very important. So, key to
Mm,
getting back on the wagon is looking at your why. Why are you doing this?
mm,
Are you doing it for health? Are you doing it because of it's part of your identity? Why are you doing it? Why is this goal important to you? And then you might have the loose goal of finishing X race, whatever that race might be. Why is that important? And then plan it with those smart goals. Write it down, put it on the fridge so you can see it. Anyone that visits
mm,
or lives with you can see it. And you become more accountable to it because you see it
mm,
daily. It might be you've been away with work and think, oh, that's right. I've had 3 days full of meetings somewhere else. I haven't had my bike with me. I haven't been able to do this. I haven't been able to do that. But now, tomorrow is a fresh start and I can get back into it. You mentioned about when you are away and having all your life events, training stress is a stress, work stress is a stress, life stress is a stress. They all go, everyone's got their cup and you're filling your cup up. We don't want it to get full of stress. We don't want it to overflow. When it gets to that point, things go wrong, not just in your training, but in your life in general. It's not important what training you do, it's important the training that you recover from. If you don't recover from the training, you don't get improvement from that training. So sometimes it is better to back off. If you come down with the flu or the cold, backing off and only doing a portion of your training or not doing training at all, depending on what is happening, is going to be a more successful pathway forward. So balancing things out. When you do travel, it might be you're not in a position to take your bike with you, but can you fit in a pair of swimming togs and goggles? Are you staying near a swimming pool? Can you fit in something else? Running shoes, can you take them? And often when you're away for work trips, they mean a later night. So getting up early is not necessarily the most conducive way to operate as well. So working out what you can fit in ahead of time, so you've got a plan once you arrive, rather than arriving and then coming up with a plan. But yeah, coming back to your why, setting those SMART goals or realigning yourself with the SMART goals to move forward, recalibrate your personal direction, and then get back on that bandwagon is the key. And seeing that regularly will keep you on the bandwagon longer. Did that cover things well in it? Yep. Anything come up from that? No. Taylor.
Hello. I was thinking, what was I thinking? I forgot. I guess acknowledging habit building is really important for me, like, and planning the night before. Like, my brain just needs structure. And so every night before I go to bed, like, I make my lunch for the next day, I pack my gym bag, pack whatever, so that I can do, like, if I take my gym clothes with me, then I have no excuse not to do the activity. Is something that does work well for me. And then taking it in my car, I'm like, well, I can just get straight to the gym, or I can get change at work and go for my run or whatever. That's been really helpful. I guess I was just thinking I have two things coming up, but they're 6 months apart. So I think I'm going to struggle for motivation between those two things. So I'm going to have to think about something else to do or some way to kind of keep going. And I know that, like, training and exercising is definitely beneficial for my mental health, but as a general rule of thumb, my mental health is something that does suffer at times. And when it does, I don't want to run, even if I have all the whys in the world. And so I find that harder to kind of get back on top of, so to speak.
Yeah,
But yeah,
everyone has their own different struggles with things. And like you say, some days you just don't feel like it. And it might be doing something is better than nothing. And instead of doing the scheduled session, maybe doing something backed off, like doing an online yoga session or doing something totally different, going for a swim. Yeah, so there's lots of different solutions, but sometimes the rest, as I sort of indicated with Tanya, the rest is just as important as the training. Um, the You used a good example there, making
I,
your lunch the night before. That's a habit I need to do. I have these good intentions
yeah,
of making it in the morning, but then never get round to doing it, and I'm running late, and it gets thrown in the too hard basket, and I sort something that's not as good or as healthy or as good an option for me as it could be, as if I'd made my lunch. There's a whole raft of things going on there, but yeah, having that break, that's important, but also looking and I've got a couple of ideas in terms of with your situation moving from one distance to another distance and having that big 6 month gap in there. It might be that once a month on the first weekend of the month, we target a certain distance for you to achieve in your long run as we move towards that ultimate goal. Doesn't matter if the 3 other weekends in that month are slightly shorter. And I think most people know I'm a big proponent of time or duration based workouts as opposed to pure distance. But that might be one way to keep the motivation as you move up to that longer distance. This month, a 12K long run is the goal for the first weekend, and we're building towards that. It might be that on the second, third, fourth weekends of the month, it might be a target of a time-based duration instead of the distance. And then the following month, we're now targeting a new distance that's a progression, a step further than the previous ones. And that's something I might talk to you a bit more about offline when we next catch up.
Yeah, that sounds good, like for how the dopamine in my brain will work. I think that would be good.
Sweet.
Oh, there was something else I was going to say that you mentioned as well. I can't remember. Sorry.
That's right. If it springs to mind, flick us a message or drop a comment in the Facebook group. It's always a good way, and it might be that someone else that's part of the group, whether they've watched this or not, might have their own contributions. Um, as always, we'll run back through. Stu, anything popped up for you? Jason?
Yeah, I think I guess further on from Tanya's point is it's good to hear someone else verbalize. I guess life gets in the way, and I know for me, trying to stick to my training. I don't know if I'd call it guilt, but if I'm missing sessions, I definitely, I guess I'm harder on myself for that. And I mean, sometimes you just can't do it for various reasons. But yeah, it's quite interesting to, well, I guess reassuring that I'm not the only person that sort of skips a session and sort of struggles with that, uh, the psyche around it as well. That wasn't a question; it was just me talking. But you're all welcome.
I
You're not the
totally
only
agree,
one there.
Jace. I think there's kind of there can be a double dopamine hit or triple actually if you like you're going for the run, the ride, the swim. The Strava thing does its
Yep.
thing and everyone likes it and gives you the little hits that you get there, and then you come home and you tick it off in your training program and your coach can see that you've done that. So it's almost like if you skip a session or you don't do it, it's almost like those things get a bit compounded as well. um even if I go out and do a run and maybe I'm doing some, I don't know, hill reps, or I'm doing some, I don't know, walk runs or something like that, it's like people will see that I'm running 7 minute Ks and they'll judge me. So I need to explain why on Strava I'm suddenly
Yes.
running 7 minute Ks. It's like, we can get so sucked into that whole social media-ish kind of feedback loop around. Yeah, but I just sort of think, yeah, the triple
Mhm.
dopamine hit in a sense, and then if you don't have it, yeah, that whole guilt, as you say, and that feeling of failure. It's a good
Yeah.
point.
Absolutely. And
My biggest thing with Strava is that you go out and you do a ride, and it comes up with all its own algorithms, and then the coach sees it, and you're supposed to do a level 2 ride, but the Strava says for some reason you were doing level 3 and 4. I don't know what. It's just that the algorithm's out.
absolutely, it's the algorithm. Um, just expanding on Tanya's point there, is social media, particularly Strava, can be a double-edged sword. When you have those bad days or off days where the sessions aren't quite as I'll say perfect in quotation marks. People's definition of perfect varies. It could be that as a coach, my interpretation of what was planned is a level 2 ride. the athlete's interpretation of what was planned is to go out there and get as many PRs on Strava as possible. So they might be disappointed the fact that they don't have those PRs. The coach might be disappointed because they didn't achieve the level two. Converse applies. The coach might be really pleased that they did achieve level two, and the athlete is disappointed because they didn't get the PRs. And there's so many combinations of that picture that not every session needs to go on Strava. And if you've had a session that you're like, nah, I'm a bit crook, I ran slow today, whatever the story is, just hide it from public view. Um, don't, not every workout I do goes on Strava. Some are deleted, some are hidden from public view, and some I just leave there because I can't be bothered doing anything with them. And that's some of the good ones I hide for, because I know someone will jump into velocity and see it in there and try and ride it ahead of schedule. So there's a few little things that I do that sometimes good sessions don't go on Strava, sometimes bad sessions don't go on Strava, sometimes bad sessions do, sometimes good sessions do. There's a mixed bag goes in there, and it can be a double-edged sword. Just have a plan for how you will deal with it, and you can change that plan as well. You hide it from view, you can display that later on. Maybe you hide it from view because you're initially disappointed until you see the feedback in Training Peaks or Training Tilt and go, oh, actually, that was a good workout. And then you can turn it on and make it public. And don't be afraid to put comments in both Training Tilt or Training Peaks, depending on which platform you use, so that your coach can see them and give you feedback and find out how you're feeling. If you're coming down with the flu and instead of doing the 70k ride that was planned and you only did 30, put those comments in there so the coach understands rather than going, oh, really disappointed the workout was shorter than planned. Well, there's a very good reason it was shorter than planned because A, B, or C happened. And that means there's that good communication going. So, yeah, Strava can be a double-edged sword. Use it appropriately.
I had a
Taylor,
really good experience
oh,
yesterday. So
sorry, Stu.
well, I had a really good experience. My Garmin fell off. Luckily, it was tethered to the bike as I was going into Remu, so I had to sort of stick it in my back pocket. So for the last bit of the ride, I felt naked because I couldn't see speed, power, cadence, anything. So I just had to ride to feel. Unfortunately, it didn't record the ride, so I had to manually put it on Strava so that it actually happened.
Yeah, and sometimes things happen like that. I saw the your photos in the group chat there, Stu, in terms of the it was a bolt that vibrated loose inside the mount, wasn't it? That meant that your Garmin was attached to the cradle, but the cradle wasn't attached to the out the front mount. Is that right? Yeah. So Taylor, background to you.
I think I remember what I was going to say last time is that just with habit building and motivation, like I do find it quite difficult because I have two jobs and I'm doing a master's at university by distance. And so, I mean, I know you know all of this, but it's just like, how do I schedule my life to make it all work, but also make sure that there's enough time for rest? Because I mean, and I have actually done a 4 week plan of because my master's supervisors were like, why have you not done this? You said you were going to do it 4 months ago. And so I was like, okay, right. So I've got a plan for the next 4 weeks and I've blocked out by color, like training, masters, whatever, so I can actually physically see what I have ahead in terms of rest. So it's a bit of a prototype at the moment, but I think it will be quite helpful for terms of just like having that rest and increasing the motivation to carry on with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I we talked about a cup before. There's an overall cup, but then you've also got the training stress. You can be recovering from the physicality of your training stress whilst you're studying. Now, studying, that's a mental drain and stresses your body in a different way. You can be recovering from that stress, the and I want to say the brain stress. It's not the right term, but I think everyone gets the idea of what I'm talking about here. The drain on your capability from the study, a good way of resting from that is through the training. Now, in a job like yours, having the study and work are both brain drains and create a lot of stress. If you make mistakes in your job, there are consequences for those mistakes. So it's important that you get things right. And I know you're the sort of person that wants to get everything right. So you will beat yourself up when you make little mistakes. So having that time where you can switch that brain off, just go out the door and go for a run or on the treadmill and go for a run where you don't need to think about any of those things. That's a good way for you to recover from that side of your life and have some balance there as well. But bearing in mind that as one cup fills up, the other is emptying, and vice versa. And so overall, there's a minor change in there as opposed to constantly filling up.
Yeah. I also accidentally left my headphones half an hour away from me today, so I had to do my long run alone.
Gives you another perspective on running.
Thank you,
Um,
Jason. It does. I could hear the birds and the ocean. It was nice, but weird. Anyway, that's
yeah.
beside the point.
I'm someone that enjoys just getting out into the bush and enjoying hearing those, but also aware that a lot of people like closing themselves off with their headphones, and so they don't need to be distracted by those. So nice work. You get a different take on that side of things. Any final questions from anyone before we wrap things up? Everyone's shaking their heads. So thank you for joining the call tonight. Look forward to seeing you next week where we have our guest presenter. Jade is coming back for part 2 of her nutrition series. I should have a note here saying exactly what she's covering, but she's going to answer some of those questions that were put up on the Facebook group or sent to me directly, as well as covering off on the topic of moving into a bit more sports nutrition rather than general nutrition that it was last week. So thanks for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you again next weekend for part 2 of Jade's series. Ka kite anō. Have a fantastic evening, team.
Thanks, Ray.
Yeah.